Welcome, everyone. Hello, I am Janelle Mason, a PhD candidate in computer science at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University in Greensboro, North Carolina, in the United States of America. I'm an alumni of the 7th Heidelberg Laureate Forum.
Welcome, everyone. Hello, I am Jacqueline Godoy Mesquita, professor at the Department of Mathematics from the University of Brasilia in Brazil. I am alumni of the 5th Heidelberg Laureate Forum.
And we have the honor and privilege to conduct an interview with Professor Karen Uhlenbeck. Karen Uhlenbeck received her BS in mathematics from the University of Michigan in 1964 and her PhD from Brandeis University in 1968 under the direction of R.S. Pelias. She held postdoctoral and faculty positions at MIT, the University of California, Berkeley, the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, and in Chicago, and the University of Chicago. Most of her career from 1987 to 2014 was spent at the University of Texas at Austin. After her retirement, she moved to the Institute for Advanced Study and now holds a position as Distinguished Visiting Professor.
Karen Uhlenbeck's mathematical work is in geometric analysis. Through her career, she has been involved in many programs which encourage women in mathematics. Her awards include a Sloan Fellowship, MacArthur Fellowship, membership in the National Academy of Sciences, the National Medal of Sciences, and honorary degrees from 7 colleges and universities. In 2019, she was awarded the Abel Prize in Mathematics, being the first woman to win this prestigious prize. Now, I give the word to Janelle Mason to start the interview.
Thank you, Jacqueline Mesquita. Hi, Karen Uhlenbeck. Hello. And thank you for conducting this interview with us. Based on your perspective in academia, in order for everyone to have similar opportunities, what do you think needs to change?
Well, quite a few things would need to change, but I think the main thing that would change it, at least in the United States, was to distinguish between well-prepared students and students and very intelligent students. Right now, a lot of one's progress involves starting out doing mathematics and other sciences very early and getting early training. And if you don't get this, you haven't got a chance to even begin studying at the top universities. So this skews the playing fields and it skews the outcome.
And how do you think the lack of female role models in the fields of mathematics affected your work?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question. In fact, I don't think the lack of female role models affected my mathematics very much. I had female role models because I read people like Virginia Woolf when I was a young high school and college student, and I knew that there were women who were interested in doing intellectual things, and they also had difficulties, but I could read about their difficulties, and I knew that mine might be even easier. And in mathematics, I don't think I thought one way or the other about it. Where it really became difficult was when I actually got a job. Because, I mean, doing mathematics is not really involved with presenting yourself to the public or to other mathematicians. It's just doing mathematics. And when I actually came to get a faculty position, there really were no women, very, very few women professors, and they were all different from me. And most of the women who had PhDs when I started out were teaching calculus in teaching calculus or had some sort of subsidiary position and were not professors. So I found becoming a professor almost impossible. And now I still find myself not falling into the role, what I would consider a sensible role in the mathematics community, because I had no one in front of me. And also, I also found it hard to provide myself as a role model for other women because I had no role models. So but doing mathematics, I don't think it mattered one way or the other.
Thank you for your response. During the course of your life, how has the definition of a successful scientist changed?
Well, I have to say that I'm not sure that's really important, except to say that it really has changed. So that means that all you young people can expect the world to look very different in 50 years. I mean, it's been 50 years since I got my PhD. In 50 years from when you start out. Of course, one of the big changes are there are other women in the sciences, and I'm not nearly so isolated. But also, when I was starting out, academia was very disjoint from life, and calculus didn't actually matter. People didn't really need to know calculus except for a few mathematicians. Now, everybody needs to know calculus, and everybody needs to know more about science to function in the modern world. So we have more women, but we also have scientists playing a more public role in life through their teaching and through their research.
Yeah. And how did you get interested in the study of geometric analysis? What was the key point in your decision to choose geometry and analysis?
When I was a student in undergraduate and in my beginning of my graduate career, I was actually interested in a lot of different kinds of mathematics. I would take a subject and I found almost everything very interesting. And it doesn't matter what it was. I mean, I was at one point studying something special about group theory with a professor that I had come in contact with in my first year of graduate training. But when I got to Brandeis, I took a course from my advisor, Richard Pellet, and it was on global analysis. Global analysis was it was faddish and a very exciting field at that point. A lot of changes had happened, and the point is, in the 60s, mathematicians discovered that a lot of the calculus you did on finite dimensional manifolds could be done on infinite dimensional manifolds. And these infinite dimensional manifolds are the manifolds of functions that you use to study ODEs and PDEs, ordinary differential equations and partial differential equations. So suddenly there was all this topology and differential geometry and differential topology that could be used to study different partial differential equations or ordinary differential equations. And I just got really excited. Anyway, the first time you see a calculus of variations problem worked out, it's just plain exciting. So I love the calculus of variations. And when I was studying, I started doing very abstract stuff, but my thesis advisor gave me all sorts of technical problems in PDE, and I fell in love with inequalities. So the combination of this exciting new field and the fact that I really like inequalities led me to go on, and I actually have done some things that are not in global analysis. I spent quite a long time studying integrable systems because I got interested in it through physics. So I've done some things that actually aren't technical geometric analysis as well.
Wow, that's awesome. Can you explain how you met your thesis advisor?
Yeah, I just took a course with him. And I think I went in and asked him when I went in to talk to him, at first he didn't know how to react. He told me afterward, I mean, he had never had a woman student. His wife had actually started studying mathematics, but actually at this point was raising children and later became a secondary school teacher. But I came in and he told me afterwards his feeling was, he said, well, I should go home and keep house for my husband and have children. But he was young. He's maybe 8 years older than I am, 10 years older than I am. And he immediately changed his mind and we just hit it off. We're very different mathematicians. He's a beautiful expositor and he thinks of things very theoretically, and I make estimates, and the match was very good because we were so different, and so it just worked out very well.
Yeah, thank you for your response. And what would you have done differently in hindsight regarding your research?
Well, that's hard to say. Sorry, I don't. Perhaps I wouldn't have given up on. Was a particular time when I was interested in the interplay between technical analysis and integrable systems, and I still think that this is a very interesting area. It's not very popular, and not so many people are interested in it, but I'm still interested in it, and I wish perhaps that I hadn't given up on understanding how integrable systems appear everywhere.
Okay. So can you tell us what is your opinion regarding the collaboration between mathematicians and researchers from different fields?
Well, that's a no-brainer. It seems to me that one of the worst things that happens into mathematics is you get in the field and you just look around you and you talk to the people who know what you know, and you just work on a small area. So my observation is already within mathematics, the tremendous positive results occur when mathematicians from different disciplines interact with each other. And this is even more so, I mean, most of the classical mathematics that we use comes from physics. At one time, there was no difference between mathematics and physics. And slowly there became a difference, but even when it's separated, you could see that the thing is quantum mechanics had a terrific development on the ideas that mathematicians had about function spaces. Relativity and geometry are very closely connected, and I don't think mathematicians can afford to ignore what's going on in other fields. The one example I always give is that the Yang-Mills equations could have easily been written down by mathematicians. They're very natural, and you could come to them theoretically, but the mathematicians just didn't. The physicists came to it first. So I think it's very important for outside collaborations. It can be kind of tricky. You have to be willing to suspend judgment quite a bit when you're working with somebody from another area. But I encourage my students to take courses in physics, for example.
That's great. And can you elaborate on how you managed to learn so many different fields of mathematics at the same time?
Well, I didn't learn them at the same time. I just get interested in something and read about it and study it and think about it. And, you know, it's been 50 years since I got my PhD. That's a lot of time. If you can think of, you can learn a terrific amount of mathematics. It's just, the thing is that I never stopped wanting to learn different fields.
Awesome. Can you tell us how you choose a research problem in your students?
Well, I don't choose my students. I work with anybody who comes up and talks to me and I try to find a problem that seems suited to them. Sometimes that hasn't gone well. Sometimes my students don't understand that if they don't like the problem, I'll find another one for them. But I've basically taken students who've come to me with very few exceptions. How I choose a research problem, that's very hard to say. I just go to seminars and talk to people, and when I find an interesting problem, I jump on it, even if I don't know anything about it. Choosing a research problem is probably the most important part of doing mathematics. And all the good research problems I've worked on have come from talking to other people.
Great. In one of your interviews, you mentioned that there is a lot of knowledge of how to take advantage of luck in order to be a successful mathematician. Can you elaborate on this point?
Well, yes, I can go through my career and tell you where luck happened to me. In particular, the first bit of luck is that Sputnik went up in 1957 and I started college in 1960. And there were programs available for American students to study science because it was thought to be in the national interest to have more Americans in science. Not only that, they explicitly said we need people so badly that we'll let women and minorities in. And it was explicitly said that way. And so that was a bit of luck. I was lucky enough, my first marriage, I got to know George Uhlenbeck, who was my father-in-law, and he was a famous physicist, and I learned a lot from him. I chose a thesis advisor that I got along with very well. And I went to Brandeis instead of going to a very an elite school where they really would have discouraged me because they had lots of good students and a woman was not very special, whereas at Brandeis, I stood out as an excellent student. I was lucky enough to get a postdoc at the University of California, Berkeley. I was lucky enough it goes on. And the point is this was luck, but I often say I can go through my career. And I moved to Texas, which was a wonderful move for me. Texas was a place where strong women were admired in the public arena. And I gained a lot of confidence there. But somebody pointed out to me when I went through all the lucky things that happened to me that I had actually taken advantage of my luck. That is, I had actually taken advantage of the things that had happened to me, whereas I could have actually not taken advantage of them. I could have not started studying math when there was programs available as a freshman and so forth. So it's really somebody else's comment that you were lucky, but you really took advantage of the luck.
That sounds extraordinary. As far as the next question, how great is the importance of the scientific environment? So for an example, your professors, your PhD advisors, your coworkers or your co-authors in the life of a young mathematician, and then how important were they to you?
Well, I think being in the right environment is very important. One has to be comfortable in your environment. So if you're uncomfortable and you're fighting all sorts of extraneous problems, you're really going to have trouble meeting your subject without things in between you and what you're doing. So it's very important to be comfortable. The question now comes in, well, are you better off at an elite institution where there are a lot of very qualified people, or are you better off at a place where you're maybe more comfortable? And this is a toss-up. This is a problem that I always deal in when I'm giving students advice. Because if you go to an elite institution and you go through the program there, then of course the next job, the next position will be easier to get. If you manage to get a PhD from an elite institution, you're set for life. So, but the problem is that if you're not comfortable there, you're not going to be able to do good work. So there's a tension between being comfortable and doing good and having stimulating and having a, I would say, more a prestigious environment than a stimulating environment. I have found no matter what environment I'm in, I find other mathematicians doing very interesting things. I was lucky enough to have an office next to Howie Mazur when I was at the University of Illinois in Chicago, and he taught me a lot of typoless theory, which I never would have learned if I had many mathematicians to talk to in my own field. So by being at a place where there weren't so many people for me to talk to about my research, I learned different kinds of research. So how the environment interacts with you is very important, but it's also not a little bit subtle on what's good and what isn't.
Yeah, thanks for your answer. Can you tell us how you generate research ideas? Where do your best ideas come from?
Well, how do I generate research ideas? I try to find interesting problems, and I go to a moderate number of seminars. That is, too many seminars, you're not going to absorb things. I keep in touch with my students who, the last interesting problem I'm working on, one of my former students brought to me, and it was a fantastic problem. I guess the thing to do is one keeps one's mind open and takes advantage of it. And if you work at something and it doesn't work, then you give it up. And if you find something interesting and it keeps going, you keep going. And I mean, I have a lot of problems I got interested in, and I really would like to know the answer for. And yet I come back to them, you know, every few years I go back and look at some of the problems I thought about and try to see if I have any new interesting ideas. But you know, somehow the idea, it is true though, however, that if you worry a problem long enough, you tend to get some ideas about it. And then if you don't have any ideas, leave it for a while and then come back. Maybe if somebody said something in a seminar that's relevant, you can go back and look at the problem that you couldn't solve. I don't know. But the main thing is it's not a linear process. You don't go out, look for a problem and start working on it and solve it. It just doesn't work that way. It's more like it's a difference between walking down a highway or making a path through the wilderness. And it's really much more like making a path through the wilderness.
Thank you for your answer. As we live in a world full of uncertainty and struggles, especially with the current pandemic we are facing, can you tell us how you are inspired to reach your goals and continue striving for success daily?
Well, first of all, I can't say that at my age I'm striving for success at all. I'm not sure. And in fact, I don't think I ever strove for success. I always tried to solve. I got interested in a problem and I tried to solve it. I never saw it as getting successful or not. And basically, from my point of view, mathematics, I do it because it entertains me. And hopefully it will entertain other people too. But, and the world is always been full of uncertainty. Maybe people in the last 50 years or something, the world has seemed more secure and not full of uncertainty. Now it's suddenly full of all these uncertainties, which were really always there. I actually myself have found reading the Stoic philosophers from Rome 2,000 years ago very, very helpful, because they faced the same kind of problems we face today. And it's very, very comforting to know that 2,000 years ago, people felt the same way we do now.
Thanks for your answer. And how do you usually motivate yourself to pursue an idea, even when you are stuck? I know you have already mentioned that it's not linear, but do you continuously work on it until you complete it, or do you work on several problems at the same time?
Well, first of all, I work on several problems at the same time. I always have a little row of them, of things to think about. And if I'm talking to somebody else, it might motivate me to think about one problem more than the other. But I have a bunch of problems to think about. And basically, if I get stuck on a problem, well, first of all, I have to say with COVID, I started going for walks instead of working out the gym and swimming. And going for walks and thinking about a math problem are a very good way to sort out your thinking about it. But you work at it until then you get bored with it and you go on and do something else and then come back to it. It's not a question of finding a problem, sitting down and solving it. You find a problem, you see if it's interesting, see if you have any interesting ideas, talk to somebody, go for a walk, think of another problem, and then come back to it. But you can't be striving for success. You have to find the problem itself interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And can you tell us what was your most difficult time?
Oh yeah, being physically ill. Nothing compares to that. I mean, when you're not, and learning to manage, actually everybody who gets older knows in the end that all these things happen to you. And actually it's a bit of a trick to learn to think when you're not feeling well, or think when when you're not feeling great. And there's no question about the fact that that physical illness is debilitating and very difficult to work through.
Thank you for your response, and that's definitely something for us to think about.
That's right. Value your youth while you have it.
Yes, definitely will do that. Have you ever felt tokenized? For an example, invited only because you're a woman and that there are few women in your area?
Oh, sure. I mean, I was reading a autobiography of Nancy Coppell, and what she said is, well, in the beginning, when we started out, we were not invited because we were women, and then at some point it changed, and we actually get a lot of invitations because we are women. And also the fact that I'm a woman influences almost all the awards that I've gotten, I would say, for the last 30 years. Probably up until 30 years ago, any of the awards or any of the recognition I got was despite the fact that I was a woman. But at some point it changed, and it became valuable for people to have women around. And I simply accept that. I mean, I think there are many male mathematicians that deserve the Abel Prize more than I do, to be honest. But I'm just in this position, and if I was discriminated against when I started out, I'm discriminated against for now. And I don't particularly like it, but I accept it as part of my position in life.
And What is your mentoring and the research strategy? Could you tell us about that?
Well, I guess I don't have a strategy. My feeling with mentoring is that I'm speaking now on one-on-one mentoring, is that you have to adapt to the person. And in fact, I think I can tell you what my mentoring strategy is. My mentoring strategy is to listen. That is, you don't tell people things. You listen to them and nudge them in the right direction or make suggestions or, but really people are very individual. I'm individual. The student or the younger man or woman is very individual, and you have to adapt the one-on-one interaction to each person as it comes along. I do say that when I do have a student, I always meet with the student once a week. And, but again, I try to listen to the student. I tell the student, come back every week. And the main thing you have to do is, if you don't have anything to report, you need to come and ask me a question. So that's your assignment, is always to come in with a question. So I really think I don't really have a strategy so much as I just try to interact with every person as an individual rather than treat everybody the same.
Well, thank you for that response. And for our last question, if the audience could get one important lesson from your life, what would you tell them?
Well, actually, maybe this is one, I'll tell you my favorite quote. It's from Howard Thurman, who was a Black civil rights leader and minister. And what he said is don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive.
Wow, very nice. So we would like to thank Karen Uhlenbeck for this wonderful interview and for her time. It was a pleasure to us and to all the young researchers.
Continue to stay safe during this pandemic. Take care and all the best.
Good luck to everybody.